Hey YouTube. Well, I'm here to talk about New Edition. So it's over. I watched it for 3 days. I watched for 2 days. I watched day before yesterday. I watched 2 episodes at one time, and then the last one last night. So it's a great show. I just watched a little bit of Breakfast Club too. It's not usually what I do, but I'm just curious about these guys and how they ended up. These guys, they're very fortunate. They're fortunate because these kids have had. They're not kids; they're men, but these kids have had 30 years of history, and they're all still young. I couldn't believe it. A lot of groups are just starting. They're just getting their break at the age they are now. So that part is great. I mean, and it's always great to have your story told, people to hear it. Because I did listen to Breakfast Club, and they were saying they had Belle Biv DeVoe. They they asked all of them, how close was this movie was to the reality. And they said it was dead on. So that's all the confirmation I needed. So they're still entertaining, still singing, still supporting their families. I think it's great. So now on this last episode, okay. First of all, we get some information, some details. People, this is probably really exciting for people who were actually fans at the time. As I said, I was not aware of them at the time. As Belle Biv DeVoe, they had a couple of hits. I mean, who's going to ever forget Poison? But uh, I was not a person who followed music kind of thing. But for people who actually follow those people, like to see their story behind the scenes, I'm sure it's very very exciting. So good for you, BET. I'm sure you're going to gain a lot of regular watchers just by this piece here. I saw, and there are other upcoming things I see that you guys are up in your game. Good. Okay, so in this episode, we find out that Bobby Brown's we had the little, I don't know what was it a wedge haircut? They tell us, and these guys confirmed that it wasn't fabricated. That was actually an accident. In other words, he was getting his hair cut by this talkative kind of fan type guy who worked for him, and he was doing his hair, and these three girls walk by, and he gets distracted and cuts that wedge in his head, messes his head up. I mean, I'm sure they dramatize a little bit, but it's not unusual. We all had fucked up haircuts, so they turned that into a look. At that time, when you're very popular like that, you can turn anything into a look, I suppose. I'm gonna put a little conditioner in there. Anyway, so that's where and then I saw they all three or four of them, however many, because it seems to fluctuate between three, four, 5 people. That's where they get those haircuts from. Okay, I didn't know that. I do remember Boys to Men becoming very popular and winning Grammys. I remember them from a Grammy show. Was it winning the Grammy or performing in the Grammys? I don't remember, but they had with the burial song. They were hot, and it was interesting to see how they uh, how they got discovered, because they got discovered in kind of the same kind of way that New Edition got discovered. In as much as these kids just showed up when they were getting loaded in their car, when New Edition was loaded in their car, and just said we're fans and we can sing and we want to put the group together. And so the scene is actually just what happened with them, because New Edition, when they found their manager, they did a very similar thing. They just showed up. They blocked his car and auditioned in the parking lot. And now these kids do almost the same thing. So history repeats itself. It's a good thing. Boy, I wish I could have got a piece of that music thing. That music game is something else. Because as a young person, as a teenager, when you're the most musically inclined, I had no talent to sing. I wanted to be a singer desperately, like I'm sure most teenagers do. I wanted to be a performer, a singer, things like that. But I couldn't sing, couldn't hold a note. But if I could have peeped that you could still get in the music game without being a singer, and that you would in many ways have a better career if you were behind the scenes, if you were a producer. But I don't know, maybe perhaps I didn't have any talent in that area either, and I might have identified it early. But that'd have been a good, exciting game to get into. So anyway, what I was saying when I first started this thing, uh, what a great thing it is to have your life story told. I mean, I wrote an autobiography myself, and it was just not depending on how many people bought it, but just to be able to have it in a book. It's a very big deal, a personal kind of a big deal to be able to tell your story. And so now they get to do this big time with this biopic. And I'm sure that they've gained some new fans too, or become reacquainted with some new friends, old friends. But it's just interesting to see these guys. These are still young men. These guys usually when you do these the biopics, the singer, if they're not dead, they are old. You know, so that's what's kind of unique about the situation. All right, I would love to have been in the game, producer. I wouldn't have been a bad guy. So many of them are. This producer in here, the guy, what's his name, Gerald, MCA. He's not a. I don't see him being a bad guy at all. He's a successful guy. And he's a producer. I think it was very generous of him to explain the situation with to the guy Mike, hip him to the game, and that guy ended up having a career as a producer. So this guy wasn't bad. You know, usually a lot of these biopics you have the producer hanging people out the window and stealing all the money and all that kind of thing. So he wasn't that type of person. Anyway, let me get sidetracked. Okay, so he discovered Boys to Men. Mike. Mike makes a career. I don't know what his career is now. Is he still a producer, or is he part of Bell Bev? I always confuse that name, Bell Bev DeVoe. I think he performs and he's a producer also, which is a good way to go. That career is going to last a lot longer than singing, performing. You know, when we're young, for us, if you are, let's say you're 15 years old, whatever, and for us, these stars are huge. They are all icons because they are on the radio or they are on television, and we see them, and we assume their careers are going to be long, forever. This is who they are. But a lot of these careers, if you enter high school at 14 years old, and there's a group that's big, a young group that's big, if they last 4 years, that is your whole high school education. So for them, there'll always be this huge thing, this huge block of time where everybody knows who they are, they're stars, they're superstars and all that. But a lot of these music careers, they only last 3, 4, 5 years. So these guys were able to somehow, by hook or crook, make it through 30. And I'm sure they're very popular, you know, when they started, and then they got popular again, and then again, and now they're another group. So, and of course, Bobby Brown has his great career. Johnny Gill has his great career. So a lot came out of these guys' years. And I'll speak as an old person. When you're an old person, maybe all you got is your memories. So they can't take that away. You had the experiences really that happened. You've had experience that people want to hear about and see. Okay, enough preaching. Let me see. Okay, so the CEO Gerald, he works for MCA. He wants. Which one do you want to take away? CEO. He wants. Okay. He wants to take. He's been hired, I guess, by Motown Records. I used to live right by there. I lived a block and a half from Motown. Anyway, I didn't hang around in front to see who go in and out of the building. Most of them came in through the garage anyway. So he is going to leave MCA Records. He was a CEO there, big, high as you can get. But I guess he's getting now offered this big job at Motown. He wants to make a splash there. He wants to take Johnny Gill with him, and that singer. I don't remember the real Johnny Gill, but that actor, whoever played that role, and particularly if it was his real voice singing, that is one talented dude. Good looking, talented. He's still a young guy. That dude had it going on. So if Johnny Gill was anything like that, and they say it was pretty accurate, I can see where he was coming from. He wants to take him over to Motown, but he said he wants them to do one more project with New Edition. Then you come to Motown with me, and we'll make this big career for you. He makes that promise quite a bit to other people. Okay, Jimmy Jam and Jerry Lewis. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, legendary producers, they suggest that the three separated. So this is the one who came up with the idea of Belle Biv DeVoe. I mean, they're producers. That's what they can kind of spot where the talents are, you know, and the direction the group should take. So they're the one who brought that idea up. So we're getting some information, some detail in this last one. It's kind of a wrap, but they're filling us with a lot of information about what actually happened in their careers. So now it's 6 years later. Okay, they're planning on making this new album coming out, this new edition album they're all talking about. It's 6 years before the album comes out. Now I don't know if they were back home in Boston. Not clear. Uh, they do seem to have been in the money though, because they did this concert tour. And I think it was 60 tour dates. They got paid $30 million. So it's good to see that they finally got some money. I don't know what the breakdown of the money was, but they worked for that money. If you're doing 60 gigs, they got $30 million. So this will put them all, make them all financially stable, or so we think, so we assume. You know, you're dealing with a lot of people. Probably a lot has to come out of that 30 million. So there are 4 or 5 guys. I'm sure they came out with $1 million or so each takeaway. So they finally got some money. They don't show the families back in Boston, but I assume that they got out of the projects finally, because there's several times the guys will say that they're supporting their whole family. So remember, they started out as kids, children. So they're very into their parentage. We didn't pick this thing up after they left home. They started off as kids, so their mothers and things, those relationships are part of the story. They're part of the story, but not only for these kids to get out of the projects, but for them to get out. Um, so they got some money. 6 years later, Brooke sees trouble. Okay, so Brooke is the one who discovered them. He's the first manager and choreographer. They fired him because he didn't have the business skills. In other words, they couldn't see the money. The mothers gave up on him. Well, Brooke has always been somebody who cares about them, and they've all cared about him as well. They're just connected. So now he's brought back in as the choreographer for the group. But he's seeing all these things that are going on, the way these guys are spending money. Instead of a tour bus pulling up to a gig, they have 4 separate tour buses, which all include 4 different drivers, 4 different crews. They all got their own thing. Then they come together to do the concert. And he's seeing that they're not even rehearsing. So the things are getting sloppy. A lot of it, Bobby Brown. But we learned a little bit further into this thing that Bobby Brown was not the only one with the drug problem. What's the other guy's name? Ricky. Okay. Ricky has got a problem with pills and cocaine. Pills and cocaine. Uh, so they show him how to hide and doing it. And then the careers, the money is stopped. I mean, they got the $30 million gig, but the money is stopped. And he's got this wife who is, they bought this great big old house. Okay, here's what happened. Let me slow down. Okay, so the guy, Ricky, boy, I hate that. You know, I just drives me nuts with these telemarketers and things. You call them, you want to say, could you please stop contacting me, take me off your mailing list, but you can't say it because it's a damn machine. So that's why I don't give my home phone number out to anybody. So anytime somebody breaks through, it's them. Okay, let me try to concentrate. Okay, so Ricky, what happened with Ricky? Okay, they had this big concert, right? The scene that we open up with, where they're all fighting on stage, that was a forward. In this episode, they show us halfway through. They show us that big fight, where basically Bobby has run on. They're performing together, Bobby Brown and New Edition. Bobby Brown gets on the stage first. It's the second act. Belle Biv DeVoe. and Bobby Brown, or they call themselves a New Edition. I'm not sure. Either way, the four guys are going to perform after Bobby Brown. Okay, Bobby Brown, he gets on the stage and acts a damn fool. He's supposed to be on there for a lot of amount of time, so that then the other group can come on and have the rest of the time. They are the headliners. Bobby Brown will get on stage and won't go off the stage. He starts doing this grinding thing and this. So he's lost in the music. I've talked about this before at some point in this thing, but they replayed this scene, so they we're in real time. Okay, so the other guy comes in, he takes over. They get into a squabble. The other guy, is it Ronnie, comes on, said, "Thank you, Bobby." Got to move them along. He's in the middle of his song. It's an embarrassing moment for him, and they begin to perform. Bobby Brown cannot take this. He goes off stage. He gets the water hose. He wants to hose him down. That would have been a dramatic scene, but the water hose didn't work. And this is a biopic, so they're trying to stick with what actually happened. So I'm sure if the writers had their way, they would just had him spraying down the whole stage. It'd been a very dramatic scene. But they tried to stick to what actually happened. So water hose didn't work. He goes back on the stage and they turn it out. It's a huge fight. I know I talked about this in my last video, but that's because the scene is repeating. Okay, after that, the record company drops them. The record company does not want them, and they have house homes now, and so Ricky is faced with foreclosure. The bank is calling him. They want their money. Apparently, they haven't been paying their mortgage. And it's a damn shame that you see people up front. You always assume they got money, but they seem to have money troubles starting from the very beginning in 1978. Okay, so he's trying to explain to his wife that we have to downsize dramatically, and she is not feeling it. She wants him to bringing them coins in. These guys like these red bone girls. All the girls look the same to me. All their women look light skinned girls with long hair, whatever. It's a certain look. They seem to like the type of girl. All right. So before we weren't aware that this guy Ricky, because he seems to be a kind of a level head in the group, he's actually got a drug problem. The first time they show him taking a couple pills, so we don't know if it's because he's sick, because sometimes, like in some of the other shows, when a person starts taking pills, they're signaling that there's something wrong with the person. They're sick, but it wasn't sick. It was probably opiates. It was drugs. Then she finds him in the house, and he's done OD. She already suspects that he's doing drugs because she walks in on him, and she can just automatically tell that he's high again. But then shortly after that, I think it's the next scene, he's done OD. He's foaming out the mouth and all this kind of stuff. So he ends up going to drug program. It's not clear. He's in an AA meeting, the scene that they show us. So AA is different than a drug program. So you can go to AA, but a lot of the drug programs, they have AA as a part of their program. So they're basically moving you into AA. But I'm getting the impression that he went to drug program, so he disappeared. And this is in a downtime where nothing's going on anyway. So okay, so oh yeah, Brooke is concerned about these guys. They're not handling their business. They're not showing up for rehearsals, and they're spending money like crazy. They spend money on these when they travel. They want to go first class for the whole entourage. They don't have these big tour buses. Buses are they're over. I'm sure they were over 100,000 then. So and the staff, and the entourage, and they're just blowing through all this $30 million, which is probably maybe a million and a half for each one of them. He's concerned, but after this big fight they have where they lose their contract, he is in the hallway and he is overwhelmed and has a heart attack, a real heart attack. So that scene, I guess that's why they chose to open with that scene, because it was a very dramatic many different aspects. Because he does pull through the heart attack, and they show him up walking around again. I don't know if he's still alive now or not. Several years later, but he pulled through his heart attack. I'm trying to figure out what happened. What happened next? Okay, so Bobby fucked up the tour. Ricky on dope and pills. Okay. Okay, so I'm trying to think of just exactly how this went down. But after the heart attack, they were all basically broke. They lost the contract, and also MCA was suing them for messing that concert up. Apparently, they had to still pay out the producers and so forth. And so the next thing we see is one of the guys is getting married. It's kind of the last scene of the thing, really. This is Ronnie. Y'all forgive me if I mess these names up. So many different characters. You have to keep him in line. I think it's Ronnie who's getting married, the light skinned guy. He's getting married to his longtime sweetheart. There's a big wedding, and of course, he's concerned about what she's spending money on his wedding. These girls at these weddings. Maybe he hasn't shared with her exactly what their financial situation is, because she's planning this big, expensive wedding, and he keeps checking the cost. Although, from what I understand, a lot of men go through that, even if they're show business or not. The kind of money these girls want to spend on these weddings. Anyway, the wedding, and everybody shows up for the wedding, including Brooke. Brooke is back on his feet. So they have a happy time at that point. They all make up. They all apologize for the past things, and he gets married. That's really the end of the episode, of the part, 3-part. It's really the end of it. So now that they're showing you flashbacks all through the career again. So they start performing, and they're just rehashing the whole thing for the last half hour of the show. Great show. Great show. These guys got their memories, and they got a career, and they're young people. Oh, I saw them on Breakfast Club a few minutes ago. I said, well, damn, they could have played themselves. That's the older purpose. That much time hasn't passed. I guess because they started so young. If they had started in the 20s, whatever, as usual, they would be old people now. They'd be old men. But they're not. No, they're still young, and they're still performing as Belle Biv DeVoe. Bobby Brown, they only hinted, they did mention a couple of times through this thing that he was married, but they didn't go into the Bobby and Whitney story at all. When I just saw him on the Breakfast Club, he didn't show up for that either. So I guess there's no love lost there. But maybe we'll get another show. So good for you, BET. This show, I saw their story told on TV1, the biography, and there is so many stories available. I mean, we've had a few. We've had the Heartbeats, and we've had the Temptations and the Jacksons, and there have been a few stories like this made. But there's a whole, I mean, that's just a treasure trove of stories that can be told. You guys do them as well as you did it with this. I would suggest use the same producers, writers, and so forth, because the people did a great job. This might be your new season, BET. Get off this Sunday's Best. Still mad at them. Great show. You guys will see it. There's another thing running from BET. It's called Back Takes or something like that on YouTube. I just saw it starting this morning, where they're actually talking to the guys, the real guys, and we're walking them through these scenes. So the guys are explaining the scenes. So there's still some more entertainment here for us. Good job. Later.